Hey homeschool friends. So I haven't talked too much about this topic on my channel, but I think it is one of the key things that has helped stabilize our homeschool. And what I mean by stabilized is it just really helps me feel more content and really grounded in some of the decisions we have made for the year because I'm able to kind of focus on what's the most important, if that makes sense. And it keeps me from chasing the new and shiny things, whether they be ideas or new curriculum that just looks so wonderful. I feel like setting goals for both our homeschool and my individual kids every year really helps me do that. So I hope you find it interesting, and let's go talk about some goals. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to my channel if you are new here, or welcome back if you have been coming for a while. So like I said, today's video is all about goals. Kind of two big categories of goals. One, the big broad goals that are more like homeschool vision type goals. And the second being specific goals for each kid for each year. And then how to assess whether those goals are appropriate and accurate and all of those things. So let's just hop in. So I'm going to start with my big broad goals. How do I set those for the year? And I wouldn't even say those are for the year per se. They're kind of longer than that. They're kind of the why behind why we homeschool. And I have put together a video called Why I Homeschool, where I talk about my homeschool journey and different things like that. I'll link that above if anybody's curious about that. I think I made that about a year ago, so it definitely still pertains. And so I won't be talking about that in this video. I will be talking a little bit more about my process for establishing a vision for our homeschool, especially in this first point. And so when it comes to that, I actually have a sheet of questions that I have, and I honestly can't remember where I got these from. I have a feeling it was like a Pam Barnhill talk of some sort or seminar. I can't remember. So if that is it, that's the credit I give to it, but I really can't remember where I got these questions. But they're really good, basic, generic questions that can really get you thinking. So let me give you just a couple of them to start off with. So questions like, why do you want to homeschool? Or why do you think this is the best way to educate? Or what is your main objective or focus in homeschooling, which is a really good one. Another one is, what goals do you want to achieve with your children at home? And then you could also ask, what do you want your children to achieve and do with their lives? So that's a really good one too, because if you're able to envision what your end goal is with your child, it helps you set realistic goals for now. Another question is, what is your overall vision for this homeschool year? Or how can you create the homeschool life you envision? So when I came across that list, whenever that was, I found that super helpful. And it really just got the wheels turning on all of those things, on kind of the big why behind homeschooling, because I honestly think homeschooling can feel overwhelming. You have to make a lot of decisions. You have to figure out your schedule. You have to figure out your curriculum. You have to do it, right? And sometimes thinking about your homeschool vision seems like, I don't have time for that. I have to pick curriculum, which I totally understand. I have been there. But I think once I started thinking about some of these questions in a more tangible way, I was able to make better decisions. And I think that is honestly the key point behind why you should do this, because it will really help you make better decisions. So I like to check in with these goals every year. So I initially made these goals in 2020, and I don't think I really checked in with them in 2021. But now as I'm looking at what I wrote down, I probably should have, because some things have changed. I've grown, I've realized things about myself, our stage of life has changed a bit. And so some of these things do need adjusting, but I think the same heart is still there. But I also think it's really important to look at your goals or your vision for your homeschool and ask yourself if it's realistic. I think that's a bit of a tangent on this video, but it's important to do that too and to kind of live in your reality. But I think you can be creative within that, especially if you have a solid foundation for your vision. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to spend your time doing this? And why do you want this for your children? And so, for example, I'll just give you a couple examples about especially our homeschool vision: to set up an environment that fosters a love of learning. And I kind of broke that up because that's a little broad. And I was like, well, I want it to be interest-led, play-based, nature-inspired, beautiful things. And I still love all of those ideas. I am not quite in the season to do that well. I have learned. but I've also learned to be kind and gracious to myself and be okay with that. But I still love that vision of our homeschool. Another thing I have is to develop a family culture of togetherness, which I feel like we have really pressed into this past year. I think starting the Sunlight curriculum has really helped us do things kind of more collectively, and we have more inside jokes and things that we understand kind of as a family because we do a lot of that curriculum together. Another one, I said to center our lives around the gospel, so to help our kids discover their God-given strengths and to recognize their value as a child of God. So that's kind of my heart behind learning the Bible, because I feel like what's hard for me is sometimes I look at early ed Bible curriculums and it's all about memorizing the names of the Bibles and memorizing all the people, and that, well, that is good and that's important and I like that too. I just really wanted their character growth, and so that was kind of why I put that there as a reminder to not just follow the curriculum, but to more follow my kids' hearts when it comes to that stuff. So those are just a few examples, but what's really helpful is while I was looking at this, prepping for this video, I realized I'm not living under all of those goals anymore. And I think it's time to reassess some of those big, broad homeschool goals to kind of fit what we have going on now, or to bring us back to some of those things, or to be like, maybe that is really important and I need to work harder at trying to incorporate like nature and beauty into our lives and in ways that are tangible, even though I'm in a really difficult season with really young kids. So all of those things, it kind of helps me think through, and there's just so much to be gained from having kind of an awareness of that kind of stuff. So those are my big, broad vision, homeschool vision type goals. And as for my kids, I probably won't share too many of their goals. I'll share a few just to give you some examples, but I do want to kind of keep the goals I have set for them a little private for just them, you know what I mean? But as it comes to my kids' goals, so these ones I set every year and they're specific for that year. So this is very different than the homeschool vision, which kind of is a broad overview. This is specific per year, and this is really helpful. I have found to think about each child kind of at the beginning of the year before you order curriculum. So it's not really the beginning of the year. It's like February when I start thinking about what I'm going to order and things like that. But I will start thinking about each kid. I will start thinking about their strengths and weaknesses, both academically and character, strengths and weaknesses. And then I will think about what we need to really focus on, because you just cannot do all the things. You can't have it be like, this year we're going to focus on writing and science and we haven't done much history, so we're really going to focus on that. Like, you can't do that. You can't make it 100% of everything. And so to have a little bit of a laser focus on a per year basis is really helpful, because you can see maybe where they were lagging this past year or where they were struggling. And that can be the bigger focus. And you can be like, okay, well, we had a great science year last year, so maybe we can kind of tone down the science in order to make space for the fact that we're transitioning them into picking up more writing, like creative writing. We haven't really done that. That's going to be a big shift. That's going to take a lot of energy and time, both for me and my kids. And so it's like, you know, that's coming. So it's like, what can we kind of tone down? Like, what are some things like we don't need to hit as hard this year? Or maybe if they are really good spellers or their handwriting's beautiful, then it's time to stop that stuff and make room for something else. And I think if you don't take the time to assess these things, you'll just kind of keep going and maybe doing things that you really just don't need to do or doesn't need as primary a focus as you have in the past. I feel like that's what I think of when I think of my kids' goals. And so I tend to try and give it a very specific focus. Like this year, for example, my son and my daughter, it really has been a focus on reading. And this has made a difference. So if you have been following my updates throughout the year, you know that as I have been sharing, we really needed to focus more on reading. And we were starting to dabble in early grammar and early creative writing. And I was like, no, that's not the most important thing. We can get back to that once we get our footing back under us for reading and phonics. But until that time, that's not our primary focus. That was not my primary goal for my kids for this year. So it really helped me. It helped me do that. It really helps me pick curriculum as well, is that if I have kind of that focused goal, I know what curriculum to spend money on and what is beautiful, but maybe not for now, sort of idea. So with my kids, I try to think of academics, character, and a third thing I like to think about for them for specific goals is like their strengths. And this doesn't have to be character or academics, but it's just like who they are right now at this age. What are some of their strengths, and how can I lift them up in those strengths? Because I feel like a lot of times goals are about like, where are your weaknesses? And I don't want it to always be that. It can be like, what are you really good at? And how can we really bolster that? How can we bring that out in you? And so I like that idea too. And so it just takes a little bit of thought, and a lot of times you can easily come up with stuff. I love that about homeschooling. It's just that I can individualize those things, and I can really think about my kids and what they would benefit most from in the upcoming year. And once I have thought about those specific goals for my kids, I will bring my husband into it. I will share it with him, and I'll be like, what do you think? Does this make sense? Do you agree? Is there anything you would add? Because that helps him kind of stay connected with our homeschool, but he also has a different view of the kids that maybe I don't see, and he can really shed some light on their character or things like that that I just wasn't thinking about. And so I have found sharing all of this with my husband to be just really key and sweet too, just to be able to bring him into this part of our life that he just isn't as much of a part of. So that is really what I do with goals, and how I'm able to assess some of these goals is really just to look at those goals with fresh eyes and be like, is this really us? Or have I strayed away from us and I want to bring it back? Or do I just need to recalibrate our goals to the reality of whatever the stage is, if that makes sense? And same with the specific goals. I feel like I do more reassessment mid-year of the specific goals to my kids than I do of like the broad vision statement. But I think both are worthy of reassessment. I mean, reassessment can be so powerful. So that is how I do goals. I know that wasn't super specific, but I hope it was encouraging, because I think being really intentional with these things can be so helpful when it comes to your homeschools. So that is what I have for this video. I hope it was helpful. If it was, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, do all those other things. But also, I would really love to hear from you. I would love to hear your comments on this idea of goals. Do you set goals for your homeschool? Do you set goals for your kids? Please share that down below. I would love to hear it, because I think it's a really fun topic. It's an inspirational topic. So I hope you feel the same way. And yeah, that is what I have for this video. I hope you all are doing well, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, take care, guys.